The first section of this workshop contains 3 chapters. In the first, we'll obtain an overview of the workshop and identify exactly what we're going to learn. In the second chapter, entitled Understanding How JavaScript Works, we're going to obtain an overview of the JavaScript language. The third chapter is designed to get you ready to begin programming with JavaScript, and we'll be going through some things such as downloading tools and reference guides and getting you equipped with everything you're going to need in order to be a good programmer. Let's first consider the scope and purpose of this workshop. The purpose of the workshop is to introduce you to JavaScript. We will cover the elements and constructs of computer programming in general, as well as how those relate to JavaScript. We'll learn about what the rules of JavaScript are. We will understand what an object is and how to develop in an object-oriented language, such as JavaScript. Once we obtain a knowledge of objects, we will use that knowledge to create sophisticated client-side JavaScript. And the objects, which are pre-built components which contain robust functionality, will be a great asset to us in doing so. Finally, we'll explore resources for the JavaScript developer. We'll learn about things that can make our lives easier when we're developing client-side JavaScript, tools, techniques, code generators, reference material, and other things that can enhance and expedite the programming activities that you will no doubt find yourself in the future. All in all, you'll gain a firm foundation on which to build. So we're not going to explore every detail of the JavaScript language. It's very important for you to understand that. That would take hours and days and, perhaps even weeks to explore every nuance of JavaScript. However, we will obtain a very firm foundation, and as you program more and more, you will learn about more sophisticated ways of doing things, easier, more elegant methods of programming, so on and so forth. Here are the objectives. They're broken into 2 categories. There are development objectives as well as productivity objectives. You should be able to effectively plan and design a script, and these things should be done before you even attempt to program. Once you've designed your script and identified exactly what you want it to do, then you'll translate the design into working code, troubleshoot that code, and run it to make sure that it executes well. You'll also develop readable, easy to understand code, which is very, very useful when you troubleshoot errors. Thus, by abiding by certain best practices, you'll be able to quickly and logically find what's wrong with your scripts. There are also productivity objectives, which include minimizing programming errors. We will cover some things that are helpful in avoiding the mistakes in the first place, not just troubleshooting them once you have made them. Also, we'll locate and utilize existing code. If the code works and someone else has developed it and they've said it's okay for us to use it, then that sort of gives us a head start in developing a website or JavaScript application. Also, we will learn to explore their full potential. The next section of the workshop is entitled The Nuts and Bolts of JavaScript. Here we will learn about the fundamental concepts of JavaScript programming. It's important to understand that until we learn about all of these fundamentals, we won't be able to do very much with JavaScript. So most of the exercises and project activities are associated with the third section and not the second. However, I can't overemphasize how important it is to learn the nuts and bolts of JavaScript. Once you learn these, you'll be able to apply them to any programming language because these are very fundamental to programming in general. If you have programmed before and you're familiar with literals, variables, command statements, functions, and objects, then you may want to consider skipping some of the information in this section. If you have not programmed, this is going to be very important for you to consider. The next section is entitled Using JavaScript to Develop Interactive Web Content. And this is the essence of the workshop. We will learn how to use the document object model, which is a suite of pre-built objects designed to interact with the browser, to do things like control pop-up alerts in the status bar, manage browser windows, capture events, and respond to certain events such as the clicking of a mouse or the moving the mouse over a certain part on the web page. We'll also learn about the browser, how to detect which browser a user is running, and execute certain code depending on the browser that they are running. Additionally, in this section, we will learn about managing frames in JavaScript, how to generate dynamic content and place them into any frame we would like. Also, we will learn about accessing and managing the browser's history, which is a stack of references to pages where the user has just been. We'll learn how to work with images, create mouse overs, pre-cache images, as well as control forms and fields to do such things as validation and client-side computation. Next, we'll learn about cookies, and using cookies with JavaScript will enable us to store and retrieve information on the user's computer and then reference that information the next time the user visits that web page or website. Finally, we will learn about resources for the JavaScript developer. These resources include publications and reference guides, as well as different resources on the web. Additionally, there are websites that we can go to locate and use existing scripts. There are also forms that we can fill out which will generate scripts for us, which we can copy and paste into our HTML code. This section will consider all of those different resources which we can use to expedite the process of scripting. Finally, we'll learn about future paths of learning where you can go for more information and details on using your JavaScript to do more impressive things. Now let's explore the format of this workshop. There are a number of slides, over 150 of them, which detail various concepts and facts that relate to the JavaScript language. Additionally, there are illustrations which provide visual representation of different concepts. There are also code samples, and these are muy importante, very important, because the code samples, in my opinion, are the most effective teaching tool. I've learned a number of programming languages, Pascal, C, C++, Java, and the key aspect that really enables you to understand and use a programming language are those source code samples. You see how things work, you see the effect that it has on the computer program and its execution, and you're able to translate what you learn into programs of your own. Project exercises are designed to enable you to apply what you learn in the slides, illustrations, and code samples. The project exercises will revolve around a website. The website at the beginning will have static content, and you will use JavaScript to enhance and add functionality to that website. Additionally, there are developer resources. There is a web page containing links of interest that will point you to some of the sites and documents and reference material that is discussed in the workshop. Finally, there's a workshop website. If you go to the lynda.com website and click on the CD cover that relates to the one that you are listening to, then you will be able to access the discussion board and interact with others who have seen the video material as well. What you should know before you begin. You should be able to copy and paste, and I know that may sound like it's very simple, but it's very critical to using JavaScript, because sometimes you'll see some code which you can use and it can save you time, and you can simply copy and paste it into a new script that you're developing. So that's very, very important. Additionally, you need to be able to use tags and attributes to develop HTML in a text editor. No WYSIWYG editor, no welcome to the web page wizard, no save as HTML. I mean, open up a text editor and actually create a document. It's very important to be able to do that because the JavaScript that we will develop will go inside of the web page and in most cases interact and be commingled with the HTML. Finally, you should be able to troubleshoot your HTML problems. If you've developed HTML in a text editor, typically things go wrong, and you should be able to look at the source, identify the problem, and fix it. In HTML, typically the problem is that you've left off a greater than or less than sign, or perhaps you didn't add that second double quotes. Well, in JavaScript, some of the same things happen, except there are many, many more things that can go wrong. So if you haven't developed HTML in a text editor and are not used to troubleshooting those problems, then I would recommend that you look in the resources that accompany the CD-ROM workshop and look at the HTML primer. There's a link to that document, and it will basically outline all of the HTML concepts that you need to know. It's not a very large document, and it conveys the material in a very concise and simple manner. So I highly recommend that you review that if you are not skilled already in HTML. Other related topics that you may or may not be familiar with are frames, linking in images, forms and fields, as well as cascading style sheets. We will be developing JavaScript that relates to each of these four categories, and there are links in the resources which will point you to sites where you can find more information on these topics. Now let's explore how JavaScript works.